Hello again. So you may see people try to join and they will just stay in the waiting room.
Okay, am I back on?
You are on, yes.
Okay.
So far, it's just you and I. The council chambers will rejoin and anybody that tries to will not be let in.
Okay,
Okay,
because you're so mean.
I know, I get all of the whack-a-mole powers.
Good for you.
These names you guys know for years, Paul Heiser, Cleve Rupert from Cannon Beach, bring back today. So he's got plenty of people, you know, we have a lot of young, like I say, young new fire chiefs in this county, a range of experience, all from Martin as the chief, Cannon Beach as the chief, Napa as the chief, Spring as the chief, everybody has it, still good people.
So the generations are kind of.
Right, it's just a big flaw, and it doesn't matter what experience. I've been sitting on a lot of panels lately because I am the county chief of all these panels. A lot of experience from big departments doesn't necessarily help you because they're gonna think, okay, on every fire I get 3 trucks, 2 engines, or 4 engines, 2 chiefs, and I'm like, hey, where are you from? And they're not used to working in a smaller box, and so a lot of the stuff we train has to be trained with a smaller amount of people, and so it's interesting hearing the concepts, and it's great. I'd love to have 15 people on the scene like that. During midday, it might be 4 or 5 of us working with 1 engine, 1 truck, 1 in the yard engine, coming up with a plan. Depending on what we have, we have to change the plan. So the plan changes every day. It's not like there's one, this is what we're going to do. It depends on the resources. And so, as we know, COVID has been a big challenge around the agency. So that's yeah, there's a lot going on with that. So.
Thank you for your insights.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I do not believe we can have an executive session as it is referred to with the Oregon Ethics Board. We can have a discussion. We are a forum, and as such, we can discuss one topic only. And we can't deviate from that. But if you call it an executive session, I believe we're limited to property bond acquisition, and disciplinary action. If I'm not mistaken,
Hiring and firing is part of that.
I think hiring.
Yeah, hiring and firing is also part of that.
okay,
Personnel issues can be discussed, and again, you're right, though, we are not making any decisions, even though we do have a quorum, but we can discuss a candidate and potential employment.
okay. I'm just voicing that because it's executive session is for the council only. We can bring somebody in, but it's not for, I mean, we can't have these people. Do they know they can't talk about anything we talk about in an executive session? I mean, it's got to be explained that any violation of that can be brought as an issue.
Yes.
And they can be
Good point.
charged
Yeah,
with a
good point.
violation. So
So-
I want that everything clear.
Yeah, and Madam Mayor has a script that we're gonna go through. But yes, just to clarify again, an executive session, it has to stay in executive session. The press is able to attend, but they cannot report, more for background, so that if something comes out, they can have some idea of what was happening. But in executive sessions, we can't make any decisions, even though we have a quorum. We can't do that. And in this case, it is a discussion about an employment issue and some of the questions that we have. It just wouldn't be appropriate to do out in the public for fear of, potentially, if we have a lot of problems with Josh, so that we would, talk about those and that just shouldn't be public. So I think it's set up for this, and Madam Mayor has a script to read that incorporates some of that.
Okay.
And I'll leave it up to her, but that's a very good point. Yes, so thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the Gerhart executive session to order. The Gerhart City Council, with four additional invitees are going to meet in an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 2A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. And specifically, this would be to discuss our candidate for the fire chief position, who is one of the public officers and an employee. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend this executive session, as well as our special attendees. Any other persons are asked to leave the room or video call. And you can see that we don't have others on call except Counselor Warren and a staff person, Christie. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any matter addressed during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the executive session as previously announced. As we said, anything that's said in this room will stay in the room, and no final action or decision may be made in this executive session. And the agenda, I don't have a printed one, but we will just try and get feedback from each of us. If there are any requests, if you have a request for clarification or follow-up, we can give those to Chad, and then we will adjourn. And any employment decisions will tentatively be made at the December city council meeting. December 1st. So feedback from each. Rocky, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I thought one of the most compelling positive features of Josh's presentation was the amount of support he appears to have throughout the fire department, the volunteers, and seemingly the community. What Chief Daniels says, the fact that all of the jurisdictions work together, important, and the fact that he's been able to coordinate that so well, I thought was a mark in his favor.
Pat, do you want to go ahead?
I have no hesitancy about having, you know, the role of fire chief. With the experience I have of working with him with the CERT, he followed through and did the kinds of things that he said that his approach to training and working together as part of the group and stuff. I've had that supportive feeling from him. So I trust that, yes, with all of the written support that he had, that other people feel the same way and would welcome working with him. Other certs, and the other people that he had with his references. Yeah.
I think this is an appropriate question. I have a question for Chief Daniels, if you're willing to. I can answer any questions. Any hesitancy from your point of view in,
You know, I'll tell you, when I got hired as fire chief, I was the name of chief of town. And there's always hesitancy, but you gotta start somewhere, you know, the old adage, has no experience. I didn't get experience being a fire chief, you never get to be a fire chief. So, no, as long as, and my focus, and I was told, lean on your mentors, you know, lean on the people who've been doing it. And you know, and I think that working with him, he does that, he leans on, when he needs the questions answered, it's not just me, and since it's 5, 6, 4, whatever, a little bit younger, but, we have other chiefs in the county and around the state, so I don't think that, I think he's there, just has to keep leading on those people, learning, you're not gonna know everything in this job. You know, you're expecting something out of a person that a lot of departments have multiple people do it. He's gotta be the fire marshal, he's gotta be the training, and he's got a training guy, but, and then he's still gotta be a commanding officer, he's gotta show up at night, he's gotta go to CERT, there's some of the bigger departments, that's just a long person. So it's gonna take time, all of us, believe it or not, I'm a fire marshal, so I don't necessarily do fire marshal. Here, he's gonna have to do plans, reviews and all that. And, but he knows who to reach out to, he works one of your letter recommendations. I didn't know the letters of recommendation, because he asked me if I did this, probably be on the committee, and I said, the only reason why I want to do it. So, the Genesee is our fire marshal, and obviously he wrote, so he has a Terry Corbett, he's a 30-year veteran out of Astoria, that lives in your district, right by your front. So to have him write, and he's pretty strict, so having him write one, Paul Heiser was a county chief for years, and he moved away, he had probably called to get that one, so you have a lot of range of, not just his own personnel, but my ops chief, David Rankin, who was also involved here, and so was I. So he's obviously built that leadership team. So,
Yeah, I was very impressed with his letters of recommendation, how far reaching they were. Thanks for the answer.
I for one am incredibly excited to potentially have Josh as our fire chief. He always has done what he said he would do. He's always been available to the CERT people for whatever questions we had. He participated, he had Hutch being the liaison, which has been fantastic. I'm very impressed with how well spoken he is. I mean, I'm kind of shocked actually, because I know him in a little bit more of a casual situation, and he really presented himself very, very well. So as being the fire chief and the face, you know, between the fire department and the community, I think he just would be excellent at that. So that's my take.
Sure.
I found most all of his answers satisfactory, except for the single source procurement and the public meeting with the district information, and I'm sure with just a little polishing, he'll get all those answers. So he knows them. But that's all.
I do have a clarifying question. What is sole source procurement actually? I heard what he said, was that,
And he got part of it. He used an example of the self-contained breathing apparatus grant, which was, like over $200,000. There is a provision with sole source procurement is when there is a bid that's already out and there is a specific purpose you want, and a single source can specifically provide that. And in this case, it was a type of SCBA that the city wanted to use based on a review done by many Oregon fire departments. So with that single source procurement, they were able to go ahead and award the contract to that because they had that very specific type of equipment that they wanted to use. So sometimes, there's only one company to be able to buy something from. And so as long as you're able to verbalize those reasons, single source procurement can be used. In this case, it was the grant FEMA. So you had part of it.
I would just say, from my role in CERT, I found Josh to be, as Pat and Sharon have said, he was there for us. He attended and trained when we had asked him to, and did follow up with the radios we were working on at the time. In my other role as mayor, he has been very responsive to questions. I asked him to report on specific things that I think would be helpful and useful, and he's been very open to that. So I've appreciated that. As far as what I put on the forms, for the most part, he was more than adequate, more than satisfactory, more than satisfactory, or a score of 8, not 100% of the time, but that would be the most frequent that I chose when I did my evaluation. Joey?
All I would say to everybody is, be able to work with, like procurement, there's a lot to learn in this one position. And what I liked him saying is you're always learning. My thing with my guys, the same way as when we stop, you need to retire, because someone's gonna get hurt. If we stop dealing with the edge, because it changes so much. Procurement, I just bought an apparatus off of procurement, we've never done that before. There's so many vendors and people bidding, that there's just a lot of stuff to learn. And fire marshaling and codes and wild interface and stuff for communities, earthquake, COVID, all this stuff. So, insert, I got the CERT with him, that's another agency, and now you got the firehouse law that really he's just jumping into. And I would just say that, support him as much as possible, but it's a big task having him jump right in the middle of a bond that he probably, I don't want to say hasn't been part of that, but probably wasn't in his level of, what his job description was maybe before. And so if you want him to do something, I think that don't expect him to change the world around on that bond that's been going for several years. And why did she get done? She should do that. He's jumping into the middle of the ship. But CERT, it sounds like he helped groom that. So the expectation would be, he understands it. Manpower and all this personnel, sure, he grew up, but that would be my only caution is, give him baby steps, don't give him unrealistic expectations to know. And I spend all day teaching them how to procure stuff and how to, do fire marshal would be forever, but I've seen them take those steps, and so that would be my only caution. Don't set too high a bar for somebody who can't get there, but he might just fail.
Thank you. Brent, do you have some thoughts to share?
Sure. Well, I've been really impressed with the quality of Josh's reports to the council. They've been much more detailed than just a number on a sheet of paper. Here's how many calls we had. He gives background information and things that are very helpful. I think he's grown just in the few months that he's been in the interim chief position. I remember the first time he came before the council, he just was totally nervous. And tonight he was, for being in a job interview, pretty at ease. I've also gotten to know some of the firefighters, and they all really think highly of him and really want to see him as their chief. So I rated him eights on the vast majority of the questions. I had a couple of outstandings. I had a couple of satisfactories. But I didn't see any red flags that would make me hesitate about hiring him. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Brent. And Chad, do you have anything?
I do, thank you, Madam. So when Josh came into this, it was a difficult situation right off the bat. Chief Eddie, big shoes to fill. He was an excellent fire chief, and he was very good for the volunteer departments, not only for us, but for everybody. And so those shoes, trying to step in and fill them, and then, the nature of the transition was also difficult. And it was difficult on the fire department during a time where we were also dealing with the new fire station, potentially, and some of the attacks that were happening. It was an emotional time. But Josh stepped up, and I'll agree with Brent. I've known Josh for a long time, and he continually grows. That's just the way he is. He's not blowing steam about his leadership. He really, this is what he lives. And so I have no doubt that he'll continue to grow. But he's done a good job. He's kept the volunteer fire department together. And as a matter of fact, they are improving. He's putting things into place that have needed, that he's wanted to do for a long time, or some changes that just work better in different areas, new ideas. Nothing was really going wrong, but new ideas. And he's implemented them, and it's interesting to watch him bring the volunteers along with it. It's not just, hey, here I am, listen to me. He does build consensus when he's in that position, but then when he's command, it's not necessarily about consensus at that point. The commander has to take command of the scene. He has those abilities. I've seen it now. And now that he has been doing this job for 6-7 months now, I've watched him on scenes, and here I am doing his review. I am intimately familiar with the job and that, and sometimes I'm a little tougher on him than most. But that's because I know what he's capable of, and I hold him accountable to that. I did his review, his periodic job evaluation. And I'm not going to share it all with you, but he did. I asked him if it was okay for me to share some of the things that he wanted, that we came up together with. Josh and I worked together on this review. We constructed it together. We discussed these issues and came up with some goals. And just a few of those, goals that I wanted for him for next year, especially if he remained as chief, was create a strategic planning and capital expenditure documents, to get out ahead of things a little bit and start thinking, down the line for our fire department. An organization evaluation chart so that he has kind of an idea. This was his idea to really kind of get a temperature for what's going on in the department based on a few things that could be check marks, so that we make sure that we monitor them, or he does. He wants to accomplish fire inspector 1 and 2 within a couple of years. He has spent time with our building officials, other building officials, and then your previous employee, Chris Dugan, who is now the deputy fire marshal. Yeah, deputy state fire marshal. Him and Chris have a very good relationship. So Chris has been spending some time with him. So I think he's going to make eventually a good, fire marshal or inspector anyway. He's looking at promoting. He's been waiting. We've got some gaps during the transition. We had some retirements, and that's normal. When Bill Eddy took over, we had a bunch of people retire. It's okay. I don't need all this change. It's time for me to go anyway. We had some retirements, and we have some, things that are moving around. So he's going to have to, if he's put in the position, he's going to have to start looking at some promotions and get some lieutenants and captains up again. His financial end of things, yeah, he admitted to me that, that's the challenging part of it. He understands, addition, subtraction, he understands the budget. He's been asking me questions about everything that he purchases, and I have him go talk to the treasurer, and he's been working pretty hard with that. But sole source procurement, he's got to learn a little bit more about that, even though we're a team, and I can help him through that, and others can. I think he's going to do fine. He wants to familiarize himself, we talked about the hazard mitigation plan, to really learn that so that we can filter everything that we do through that hazard mitigation plan to increase our resiliency. He's gonna lead, I asked him to lead an update on the emergency operations procedures for Deerheart and the Rural Fire Protection District. That'll be a big task, that he said that that's something that he will work with. That's a goal ahead. He's been working on this communication, bottom line up front, and he's looking forward also to taking some training with our insurance company. The CIS, it's something we came up with. He's going to do that if he gets the job so that he can learn the intricacies of the insurance, exposure, liabilities, things like that. They provide a lot of services and training. So I was really confident. His review was good with me. Again, I was kind of tough on him, but there's a lot of room for him to grow, and I think that he's up to the job myself.
Have you seen any minor or major missteps in the last 7 months as he went from his old position to interim chief?
I don't know that he has made any major mistakes. There has been some relational things where working with the volunteers during the transition, some were upset, some decided to quit, just a few. Because it was their time, they're just frustrated or what have you. He had some challenges there, having those really tough discussions, but he was in a position suddenly to be chief, and he took that really seriously, and he was worried about it. I mean, if something goes wrong, it's on him. So yeah, there were some rough spots, but not very many. And then he was able to repair the relationships. And I'm just thinking about, 2 people, one that ended up quitting, that he's still working on that, but it wasn't because of him, it was because of the situation. But yeah, it was tough for him. And he made a few minor mistakes, but nothing I wouldn't have expected, especially under those circumstances. And then he owned them.
That says a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, that was gonna be one of the things I wanted to ask was your impressions of how he's done up to this point, and I think you've addressed that very well. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some things that I'm learning from Josh, in regards to some of his positivity and his forward function. So he's good, and our relationship is pretty good. And he was right. When I go over there, he's my chief. Although there's sometimes where I just won't cross that line, I'll make him come over to mine. But, other than that, we have a pretty good working relationship. It's not always easy.
He's been real integral. I mean, I go on, because the county chief, I go on every incident that's major for the last 3 years. So he's done a lot. Last 7 months, I've kind of seen him grown quite a bit on some of these, house fire. We guys had an apartment fire there off the highway. That could have gone really bad. And so addressing other things, we can work with us, hey, what can we do to help you for the coast? Because we have a few people in town, 4th of July tends to be more of an impact on us. What can we do? So helping the neighbor. You guys, like as a small department, I think that's another help. There's a whole 20 other volunteers, 25 more people I can help. So we run so much, and he's been there, and helping us. The radio grant, our 911 center is all in Seaside right now, and he's on the comms committee for that. So he's stepping in. That's why I say the biggest hang up always to be the chief is, I'll vouch for it, is burnout. So you got to make sure they don't just jump into everything, because they will. I did it, and then it takes you forever. I've been doing it for 10 years now as the chief, and my wife's trying to reel me back and say, hey, you can't volunteer, because it just grows. And so my big caution is for you guys, just don't put a lot on the shoulders, because you'll do it, and then you run into the ground. So.
Any final thoughts or comments or questions? Well, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm going to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And I.
Thank you again for your volunteerism here. If you'd like to turn your notes into me at a later time or now, either one is good. I just like to collect them for the file. And then that way